The Election of 1888 by Dylan Murray.
I am a clean-shaven Benjamin Harrison. I would go on to become the 23rd President of the United States. My term was relatively successful, and I was able to get my tariff passed. I am a clean-shaven.
The election of 1888 was between Republican nominee Benjamin Harrison and Democratic nominee Grover Cleveland. Cleveland is seen here on the left, and Harrison is seen here on the right. And next to them is their vice presidential candidate. This is the electoral map. It doesn't show us a whole lot, but it does show us that it looks extremely close, and it was almost a tie. But you really don't appreciate everything until you see the numbers. The first thing you see when you take a look at the numbers is that Harrison lost the popular vote by about 100,000. Despite losing by a significant amount, he would go on to win the electoral vote and become president. We'll get into exactly how he did this a little later. You also see two third-party candidates. Normally, the votes given to third-party candidates wouldn't really matter in an election, but in this case, those votes could have easily changed the outcome. This is Benjamin Harrison. Harrison came from a political family. His great-grandfather was one of the signers of the Declaration of Independence. He fought in the Civil War and was considering being a minister before pursuing his political career. This is Grover Cleveland. He was the Democratic nominee and the incumbent. He, like Harrison, was a lawyer. His first term as president was mixed. He did some good things, some bad things, but overall, not very eventful one way or the other. He was unanimously selected as the new candidate. He was around for the Civil War just like Harrison, except instead of fighting, he opted out of Civil War services. The biggest issue facing the nation during the election of 1888 was the tariff. Each presidential candidate offered their own view of what America should do. Harrison was for a high protective tariff. He drew his support from the industrial Northeast, who wanted a high protective tariff so that way imported goods would cost more and they could make a higher range of profit. Unlike the election of 1884, this was a much tamer election. Neither candidate really campaigned a lot. There was no dirty politics or big speeches. It was quite a boring campaign if you think about it. This is one of the main reasons Grover Cleveland would go on to lose the election. With him not campaigning that drastically, the responsibility fell on the vice president's shoulders. Vice President Allen Thurman was old and in declining health. He was unable to successfully gather the voters needed, and because of this, Cleveland would go on to lose the election. This is one of the only political cartoons I could find relating to the election of 1888. In looking at it, it's not that grand. It doesn't insult one candidate. It's not that famous of a cartoon. I had never seen it before, and I would be surprised if anybody here had. This just shows that the election of 1888 was a pretty moderate election. Not really that exciting, but still very, very important. As previously mentioned in the first slide, Harrison went on to win the election of 1888. It was one of the closest elections in American history. Harrison was able to win New York by a meager 13,000 votes, and with it, he took the 34 electoral votes it offered in the election. He also won Indiana and its 15 votes by another slim margin. Had he lost these two states, the election would have ended differently, and Grover Cleveland would have become president.